Hi, my name is Phil Davies and I'm the CEO at FlyForm. I'm joined today by Stephen Williams from FlyForm and Adam Haylock from ServiceNow. Today we're going to be discussing event management both as a process and also in the context of the event management application in ServiceNow. We'll be looking to cover why event management matters, pain points that can come from not having good event management in place, and some best practice tips for how to optimize your event management. Guys, talking first of all about why event management matters, I always go back to these kind of few points around, first of all, noise and chaos. And for me, harnessing noise first, you can have all these kind of monitoring systems in your estate. And some companies we see may have 20, 40, 50 different tools. Yeah. Everything from multiple network management systems, maybe legacy ones, new ones, different networks, through to vendor-specific event management tools. So, maybe VMware's got its own and EMC's got its own, and they're all kind of looking at events within its own mini ecosystem and sending them somewhere in theory. And the outcome of that tends to be, first of all, from a processing perspective, thousands or tens of thousands of events an hour. And nobody's capable of processing that data and actually figuring out, is there something wrong? And if there is something wrong, what is it? Yeah. Do you kind of have any insights on, have you ever been in those kind of environments working yourself or seen that kind of?
I mean, absolutely. So you see it so often, people working really hard and trying to manage the situation of understanding all these events and information that's coming through from multiple sources, multiple tools, like you say. Way too much swivel chairing, we joke about the funny pictures of multiple screens everywhere, but it really is a reality. Yeah. And these people are working very hard, but they can't make the right decisions because ultimately there's too much coming in.
And things get missed, right? Because it leads into the whole point around the chaos, where I think you and I particularly have worked in environments where you do have literally 4 monitors, 5, 6 monitors on your individual desk, plus 20 on the wall, and they're all rotating different tabs and systems. Yeah. And as soon as you get one event come in there and you're working on that anyway, you're missing the rest for starters in the background. Yeah. And even if they are coming in, how do you know which ones are important or more than others and less so?
Yeah, there's a real need for automation in that space.
Yeah, and I tend to find as well, even trying to keep it clean at the NMS level first, so in the network monitoring system itself first, but then when that stuff comes up to the forefront, you need some kind of aggregation platform. You need something that's going to bring all those things together,
that layer on the top,
add some intelligence, make it neat and clean, make it actionable, make it so someone can look at a glance.
Yes.
I think most service desks and NOCs, in general, want their agents to have information at their fingertips. They don't want to spend 10, 15, 20...
One screen.
Yeah, one screen and that awareness around it, which leads into another point for us around event management with that service awareness. It's all well and good to get a red alert or maybe a device, you even know that device may be important. Sure. But going back to our points in some of our other material, what does that mean? Have I lost some minor service somewhere which isn't a big deal, or have I just lost the most critical thing that we support as a business? So I'd be interested to hear your thoughts really on kind of how can businesses remove that problem from themselves, and how does ServiceNow's event management maybe help take that away?
Yes, certainly. So I think it's about a phased approach. First of all, understanding, getting hold of all that noise that's coming into the organisation. So let's connect to all these points that are coming in and bringing these events get them into ServiceNow.
Yeah, that's right.
Once we get them in, we can start to process these and understand better where we need to focus our time and turn those into alerts and give the operations team the ability to have that information to where to focus. Okay. So that's the first step, to actually give them knowledge to where there might be an issue and spend their time.
Okay.
Where it gets even better is we start to consider the opportunities to automate and actually give them a single click option to fix an issue.
Yeah.
And how about service awareness in all this, I guess? So obviously it's all well and good getting these events coming in and alerts being generated, but I guess unless you've taken those steps earlier on with getting those business services in and getting that context, that maybe I guess the data still becomes useless data without that context?
Yeah, sure. So you can set up things like technical services, so groups of different classes of CIs perhaps, or a particular environment, and look at things in that way. But you really need that context in understanding those alerts and how they're potentially going to impact your business. And that's where the business service layer comes in.
Okay. And I guess even that ties back into that automation point where you may have certain business services you're happy to automate things on and you're comfortable in that environment, and maybe some you want to steer away from. You always want a kind of person or manual check being done against maybe a critical service before you start reaching into those types of things.
You apply some kind of logic behind that and some thresholds where you might say, well, okay, in this example, we will require an engineer or somebody to make a decision off that information provided. But in other examples, we might say, do you know what, do it, we're happy for this automation to take place and prevent any issues.
Yeah, and even in the scenarios where you need that extra approval step, then event management can actually instigate a change request within the system automatically and take it to the point where the approval is automatically requested.
And I guess that's a key point, going back to that single click, isn't it? Rather than, this can come in, someone can evaluate it, right click, raise a change or create an incident or both or whatever that process may look like for them.
And that is true automation. You're removing bottlenecks, you're removing siloed approach, and you're collaborating between operations and you're back into your change teams and so on.
And I guess going a step further from automating incident creation and change creation, you can even then go into automating remediation, let the system start fixing things. And have you got any kind of examples of what that would look like?
So you can invoke orchestration workflows to actually go and restart services on servers, or any sort of steps that you need to take to restore service.
And I guess the good thing about having it in one tool is the fact that one product can do the analysis, actually raise its own change request and conduct the restart of the service and come back and maybe call someone out if it needed to, or notify the engineers and that kind of stuff.
End to end.
Yeah. Okay.
And we can start looking at operational intelligence.
Yes.
We're actually now starting to bring in machine learning and AI into the operations part of the organisation. We're able to make predictions.
Yeah.
Because we've got the data and we've got the knowledge of what happened before, how things were fixed, and then we're able to prevent them from happening again.
And I think it's a really good point, and we talk about this a lot with a lot of our clients' journeys, where we go from this kind of reactive world and going back, a number of years for myself, or maybe some people's organisations still operate like this today, where more often than not, sometimes the clients phone you and tell you something's down and you don't know, and maybe you're a director or a senior person and you don't want to get that phone call where my services are down, they're kicking off, and you don't even know about it. And then even worse, you go to the NOC or the team and they don't know about it. And it's very reactive at that point. Or you're getting the alerts in and maybe you are spotting it first, but you don't know what it is. So then you're spending 10 minutes looking it up and another 10 minutes finding a diagram. And we see that quite often. And then we try and move them into this kind of proactive world we talk about now, where the events are coming in, the alerts are there, but they know about it first. They know who's affected. They know what's affected because the business service is listed. And maybe they know which actions they should take. And maybe even the system is starting to take those actions. So moving to even the proactive layer itself has got a maturity journey, right?
Of course, yeah.
And as Adam just pointed out, then moving into operational intelligence and going into this predictive world where the system now knows that if X happens, there's a certain percentage chance of Y being a
really
knock-on effect. Yeah.
And you can control it. As I said, you can apply the threshold and the logic that the organisation is happy with to start with, and then as you get more confident, you can
roll it out more and more and become that. Okay. So I guess there's even a phased approach into that operational intelligence stuff then. And
I always say when I talk about ServiceNow in general, but particularly with event management, first of all, let's give the information. Let's make that transparent and visible to whoever needs to make the decisions. Then they can be effective, and they know how to deal with whatever the issues might be and become efficient in their roles. That's great. That's the first thing. But then let's take it a step further and bring in the automation and the machine learning and the operational intelligence. And that's just absolutely huge. That's a massive change for many organisations.
And I guess you're battling the cultural change at that point as well, in terms of organisational cultural change, where if you come into a place today that's still in reactive mode and they get messy alerts, and then all of a sudden you tell them, hey guys, we're going to come change the world and you're not going to have to do anything. People are worrying about their jobs, they're worrying about the technology products, maybe they're working on a different vendor product right now. So I guess even that is should be part of the project or program for people to always consider what's the organisational impact going to be for getting the employees on board, things like that.
It's so great that you think along those lines because it's key. So that is about providing a better experience, first of all, to the employees and the engineers that are working day in, day out. But then it's about unlocking their productivity and making them be able to work on more important tasks, whatever that might be, whether that's driving change for their organisation, whatever. But actually, let's stop working on or spending too much time trying to figure stuff out. Let's use the technology for that.
Exactly.
And I guess also improving adoption as well, because some of these companies spend a lot of money, whether that's 6, 7, 8 figures on licenses alone, and then maybe some decent implementation fees. And the last thing they want is this to be sat as kind of tech on the shelf, or some product that people kind of berate or they're not interested in. And I guess it kind of really ties into getting that moving and really unlocking more return on their investment ultimately.
And we can back that up. So this is where over time you back that up with data and information, because if you haven't got it, how do you know if you're improving in event management or how you manage events in your organisation? If you're firefighter mode, you don't know. If you've got the information, you can actually go back to the board and say, this is the change we've made, these are how much better we're operating.
So I guess in that vein, it's kind of like similar to most projects that we would, I guess all projects, not even just IT or ServiceNow, but taking that baseline before you start. So getting a snapshot of where we are. Where are we today? What is the state of the landscape we're in? How many events alerts do come in? How many do we miss? How many are miscategorized, misprioritized, whatever that is. So I guess you've always got that to reference back to later on and
measure
check the efficiency.
What success will be. So is it full end-to-end automation, or is it just getting hold of reducing the noise and the chaos? It's important to understand what that end goal is.
Yes.
And make sure it is aligned back to what the organisation wants and is actually part of strategic initiatives and not just, And
I think the theme I'm hearing around in all this series around ITOM really is each of these really are their own projects, so getting that CMDB in on its own, discovery could be part of that because it's part of the population, but it's still almost a sub project of its own within
it down.
Exactly, because you've got this whole design piece that you need to get right around the data model. You need to get discovery or other integrations, those sources, those things, they need to be in their own right, kind of designed and governed. And then before you even move forward in the ITOM journey then into event or orchestration of things, again, the same rules apply. What are we trying to achieve as a business? What are the goals? How are we going to measure the success, etc., and then make it piecemeal and
that's
forward.
Exactly where we work with our partners and customers, is to provide that best practice in terms of here's the approach, this is what we think would work well with your organisation, what you're trying to achieve. Not just potentially take it all in one hit. Let's think about how we want to approach it.
Data sources and event management, Steve. Tell us about the kind of importance of establishing those sources, knowing what they are and how they come into this picture.
So with event monitoring, there are a lot of different solutions out there that may be deployed within the organization. So you'll move from one team to the next and they're using different things. And it's about understanding really where the valuable data lives for them, and can we connect to that and actually aggregate it in ServiceNow and bring it in so that we have a single source across that valuable event monitoring.
I've seen a lot of teams myself in different places where you go into the central IT department or the NOC or whatever, wherever that hub is. And they already, got 10, 20, 40 tools, whatever. But then you start kind of picking around the edges of, okay, well, how did this P1 last month, you guys raised this as an issue, you didn't know about it. Why? Oh, we don't have that tool. Okay, well, does anyone have that? And you kind of go from department to department and you actually find out that the VMware team's running another tool and another team's running SolarWinds on their own when you've got Nimsoft in the main HQ and whatever.
Exactly, and you need all of it really to be pumped in to a single source so you can understand holistically, what's out there, what's generating these alerts and how that actually impacts the business at large.
And I guess even down to the tool level then, even though it's outside of the kind of ServiceNow bit, that one of the things I used to come across in the NOC a lot was we had super expensive monitoring tools at the time, and then they were good, to be honest. They were doing a good job, but as with everything, these things need configuring and maintenance, and we didn't know that at the time. It wasn't something that came up obviously to me, and so we had this expensive product in, and everything appeared to be in there. But then you'd hit a certain issue overnight on a core node. You'd come in the morning, you couldn't understand why did no one know about it, and you'd find out, and it would usually be a handful of things, but for example, that particular trap wasn't configured to send into the NMS, or when the NMS did receive it, the threshold will be different. So we will have configured the NMS for that to be a yellow alert, like an informational alert. It's not a red critical. So we often, even in these projects, tell people, look, this is a good opportunity for you to consolidate, find out where all these tools are, and do you still need them and whatever.
Yeah.
But also then, are they configured properly? Because if you don't pump the data into us anyway, and if you pump it in with the wrong level, if you're not telling us it's critical or whatever, you're still not going to get the same outcome.
Yeah.
And that ties back to that whole, what are we trying to achieve with this mini project? Are we missing alerts? Are we not actioning them quick enough? Or are we not getting the MI on them? And from there, working back to the actual network tools and saying, okay, well, we're trying to achieve this, and ServiceNow will do this bit for us after, but if this bit in the middle doesn't come in right, then...
I really like that. It's about having a business conversation first, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it goes back to that, communication across all parts of the business before
you embark.
Exactly. That's good to hear.
Yeah, and I think it happens the other way around, doesn't it? People come in and, they'll hire someone to put event management in, so they just come in and turn it on and start plugging data sources in, but there's no reference back to what are we trying to achieve or how we're going to measure success and what are the sources, all these kind of key questions that need to be outlined much in the same way as any other module needs to be designed and planned, really.
Yeah. And I think it's an interesting point as well with, as you say, these sources need to be configured, the monitoring tools, to know where those thresholds are at. With event management and operational intelligence, obviously it's learning the patterns over time, what's normal behavior for these CIs, and where it deviates from those normal patterns, it can actually make those predictive alerts, and the operations team can get ahead of potential issues.
Yeah, it's good. And I'm assuming with operational intelligence, much like agent intelligence in the ITSM space, that there's got to be a period of learning for the machine, so like 3 to 6 months or something, or 6 months
it needs to have the information,
a good data set
to understand, and be able to make those predictions. But so you do need to have that set, and you do need to have that good data and monitor it. But ServiceNow will help you do that. It will help you make sure it is working, make sure it's proving value, and if it's not, show you where to make changes. So that's the good thing about that whole space in terms of AI and machine learning, operational intelligence. I always say that it's not just about applying a bit of technology and high-fiving on your way out of the office saying that's great, isn't it? It's about applying it and then going back to the business and saying, and this is why it's successful, and this is what it's done. And if it's not, quickly get the information to make decisions and tweak and improve.
One of the points on that, with that learning period, we've tried to kind of change the process a little bit in terms of that maturity journey, both with operational intelligence and agent intelligence, and the fact that because we know it needs that data, we're kind of saying to people now, look, we know you're on a maturity journey, so you're not really going to get this value out of this right now, and maybe you're not even ready right now to look at it in detail. But if we can do the first phase of that, the event management design of the sources, but turn on the op intelligence at the same time in the background, let it do its thing, let it learn its data. So by the time you are ready, you've got that data set there.
Let's improve your efficiency on day one. Let's just make things better all round.
Let's give you the visibility.
And then the roadmap and the journey is, AI, operational intelligence. And that will evolve anyway and just get better and stronger. And so, it's exactly that's a sensible way of looking at it.
Cool. So with the service awareness side of this whole piece, so obviously we've all probably seen, and we'll flash up some images of kind of the event management kind of dashboard with the tiles, and you've got the different business services and I assume other services on the technical services, whatever?
Technical services, and we can also group alerts by different geographic or in terms of business function as well.
And is the intention that these dashboards are being used in the NOC and they're up on the wall and on the monitoring screens themselves? Is that kind of where we see these things getting the most use?
Yeah, generally, so it's that single pane of glass for an operations team.
The C-level people want the single pane of glass. They want to look at their easy screen, sometimes they claim, to see, is my service red or amber or green? They just want to, ideally, I assume they just want to see green, but they want to know what that relates to if there is an issue.
Sure.
Does the event management, kind of the tiling and that setup, do you port that onto a service portal page or something separately, or is it a dashboard that a back end dashboard that a C-level person would tend to have, or are those things like widgets you could pull onto a normal dashboard, or how does that kind of
so we see it quite often with the service portal where these alerts are actually creating outages against services or degradations. And that, can be surfaced then to an end user or any kind of user within the organisation who can just go to the service portal and see at a glance the RAG status of the business service.
And I guess being able to pull that out gives you the flexibility then to still use your tailored approaches in the fact that the C-level guy doesn't want to see the same level of granularity that the NOC does, and the end user who's a client may only see a limited subset of services, and I guess it gives you that flexibility to pull that around. And
I would take it a step further. So you could go onto a portal and see, without even logging in, you could see the system status. You can get that visibility, but you could see it in a various different formats of whatever you want to use, whether it's through the virtual agent, for example. You can engage and find out what the system status. So if you are, at home, whatever role you're in, and you're aware there might be an outage, what's going on, quickly hit up your virtual agent on Slack or whatever you're using, you can find out. So it's
kind of asking the chatbot, is there an issue, and they can kind of, and even the virtual agent will tell you.
The big thing is, it's not about one channel, it's about whatever works at that moment in time for whatever level, C-level engineer, they get the information they need easily and quickly.
Because I imagine a lot of the C-level people, especially if they're at home or even anywhere, it's going to be mobile, iPad or whatever, they're going to just want to get a notification onto the app via the subscription or whatever notification, and then go into there. And
the big change that really gets me excited is we're pushing this information to where people are at the moment in time. So if it is a Sunday afternoon and you're I don't know, whatever, you're not logged in, you're not connected to work, but you are on Slack doing some different type of comms, you can still engage at that moment in time and get that information. So it's a cultural thing, it's a different way of working, but it's the way everybody's moving.
And that's the way people want to work these days, isn't it? And it's definitely the future that's coming.
Sure.
Cool. So guys, we've talked a lot about CMDB in the past couple of videos, how to design one, how to implement one properly, the importance of populating that and maintaining it, and now we're talking about how the fact that underpins good event management, what event management looks like. I want to talk a little bit about what the future of CMDB itself looks like, maybe at a conceptual level, and also kind of around the importance of CMDB, I guess. So for me, I used to see CMDB being interpreted in the market as kind of a nice to have in a lot of cases. So unless a client had a really strict contract that meant they had to maintain one, and the client was then actually checking on that contract, which I've seen happening, people didn't maintain them. They either weren't there or they weren't being maintained properly. So again, accuracy, completeness, things were a mess. I think for me, I see the shift now almost becoming the CMDB as a must-have, because people are kind of realizing that unless they get this in and right, first of all, even the basic fundamentals like knowing where your assets are, tracking your software, understanding how my infrastructure hangs together can't be done. But then when people have this nirvana, you get a visionary CTO these days that wants to know when can we orchestrate, when can we spin things up in the cloud, when can we push client software out automatically, when can we remediate automatically. And you tell them, well, you can't do that with a bad CMDB, all of a sudden it tends to get a lot more focus. So you kind of seeing a similar vein when you're talking to clients and things like that out in the market?
Yeah, I think yes. So it is about, absolutely, it's you have to have that in place, and not only just for the basics. Like you said, that organisations cannot afford to have any kind of outages. We're in a kind of zero tolerance for outages in a good way at the moment. It's absolutely right. So we need it for that sense, but also if you haven't got this foundation that not only will give you a competitive advantage by having that, reducing those outages and so on, it will enable you to, we talk about the future of CMDB, it'll enable you to be able to have the future type CMDB by leveraging all of the AI capabilities that we're starting to see coming through technology and through enterprise platforms. So absolutely you need to be in the right place to pick that up and move forward. And then think about the consumerization of IT. So there's a great example using ServiceNow where in the ITOM space where there's a problem, something's happened, an event has come in, an alert's been triggered, we understand what it is, we understand what the impact is, and on a mobile device it can flash up, this is the problem, we think in 30 minutes this CI is going to be impacted. It's linked to this service, whatever that might be, and therefore if or when that goes down, it's going to cost you £1.2 million, this and this and this. Do you want to prevent that? Yes, click here. So you think of the power of that. You can sit there and go, okay, yes, do that remediation for me, and then it'll do it, whatever it might be, and come back and say, we prevented that issue, and now everything's green, and you say,
it's a very tangible benefit, isn't it?
Huge.
And I think as well, there's a couple of shifts, isn't it, that have made this become more important. One is kind of talking about the zero tolerance for outages. You know, future generations now, younger people, services are always on. You know, the phone's always working, the app's always working. They expect that to be working. That's become the kind of expectation.
20 years ago, when we worked in IT, you turned off a server by mistake. You just turned it back on again.
Yeah, and people might not notice. People expected things to go down from time to time. And and even long outages were kind of just accepted. Whereas now, anything more than seconds or minutes on a big service
it has to be prevented. And brought back very quickly.
Definitely. And I think the other issue that's impacting this as well is the fact that obviously tech continues to take over the world. So, you know, on a large scale, everything's becoming kind of technologized, if you like. You know, everything is moving into some kind of technology service. Even mundane things that used to be, you know, very manual are now becoming technology oriented. And that means if you're not managing that stuff and you can't get a handle on it, then even most day-to-day activities are now being affected by that type of thing.
Yeah. We have to be able to automate as many processes as possible inside an organization to be able to be successful and keep up and move forward. And the CMDB is a core to that, managing events and everything.
There's some pretty big examples, isn't it, as well? If you look at IT failures affecting the country, you look at something that happens in an airport, you know, they have an IT failure and BA can't fly for a day. You got thousands of people or tens of thousands of people affected, and the knock-on effect of that, and then the monetary effect, the economy. And again, a lot of these things, if you could get behind the scenes and look under the hood, and some of the reports that get made public from some of the bigger ones, they are as basic as we didn't know where the assets were, we didn't know what was running where, and then we didn't really know who to contact or how to fix it afterward, you know. And again, all these things tie back into a CMDB and getting that right.
Manual remediation steps, you know, tribal knowledge, all sorts of things that, you know, having a real good implementation of a CMDB and the automation with it just takes all that pain away.
Yeah, great. So one of the journeys, guys, we try and take our customers on, and we try and visually put this up for them and give them a breakdown of explanation, is kind of this reactive, proactive, predictive journey. And the reason we take them on that journey really is because they can often get into kind of panic or become despondent or feel overwhelmed by looking at where they are. So they're often in this reactive state. And what that looks like to us is the clients are calling them and telling them about an issue before they know. Or events are coming in maybe and they are seeing them, but they don't understand the service awareness. They don't understand the impact analysis.
Too long to pick them up.
So and it takes them ages to find. It's all this noise and chaos we talked about earlier. And they're still there. And then we come in and start talking about this world where the system knows everything, and not only does it know everything, that it's going to fix everything for you automatically, or parts of the stuff. And you show them, and it blows their mind. So we try and take a step back now and take on a much more slower kind of conversation around. Well, look, this may be where you are, and our first step is to try and move you through this reactive phase as a maturity journey, and get you into this proactive phase. So we want to get you into this phase where the noise has gone and the chaos has gone to the most degree it can. You've got a nice single pane of glass, events and alerts are all being captured, they're being analysed, context has been applied to them, you understand what this means to your business services in terms of priorities, and even that proactive phase window in itself is a maturity journey. You may be at the start of that, you're just getting to the point where you've got a dashboard, through to at the end of the proactive phase, maybe remediation is happening and automation.
But at each of those stages, you're able to demonstrate, you know, success and improvement, as well as being able to, like you say, remove the noise and chaos. So you can move forward, because until you do that, you know, we can set out the best, organisations can set out the best laid strategic initiatives, but if you're in that place of noise and chaos, you cannot move forward. So
and the good thing is with that, it's quite tangible. You know, you can look at how many alerts did we miss last month. You know, how many did we miss priorities? How many did take us 2 hours to respond to, as opposed to minutes or seconds to respond to. So there's some nice business cases there as well to show for the companies these days are realising we have to, if we want to win bigger customers and win more revenue and whatever, we've got to really deliver an exceptional service. They can really buy into that. And moving forward through that proactive phase, we really want to get to the point, you know, where they're now accepting the predictive phase. And what that looks like to us is, for example, the operational intelligence engine in ServiceNow, where that's using machine learning and AI to read these data sets, And again, the machine itself gets an understanding of how your environment operates, what normal looks like, and also patterns. So it knows if these 3 things happened last month that caused and it resulted in the P1 at the end of it, when the first one happens, the machine is capable of telling you, hey, this has just happened, and last time this happened led to this within 3 days. And so now we're giving you a 27% chance, you know, whatever that number looks like, and building on from there. And that's a really powerful place to be, because then you start talking about preventing problems before they've even occurred, and saving that money before it happens, and the news and the embarrassment depend on the size of your organisation or the criticality of your service. And for public services in particular, you know, if you're talking about a public service where you get online to a doctor or tax in a car, or an MOT station can't do your car, whatever, you know, those things they hit the news.
I mean, you're describing, you know, future IT. That's what will be demanded of.
It will.
From CEO, CIOs down, you know, that kind of thinking.
We saw the same pattern 7, 8 years ago with discovery tooling. So when ServiceNow first brought discovery tooling out, I remember the place I worked at, I tried to take it back into my organisation, and they were like, how much? And you get spreadsheets for that every week. And I was like, yeah, but the spreadsheets, we're having these issues, and my team don't know what to do, and I'm getting in the neck from the clients, and the service managers then give it to me in the neck, and I'm spending a week writing reports about this stuff because of these things happening. You know, and within a matter of maybe 2 to 3 years from that point, all of a sudden everybody wanted kind of discovery tooling, and it was a case of
the value.
They started, you know, can we have a pilot, can we do a test, and again, that can even be an approach for this stuff is, and we quite often offer that to customers, is look, we'll get the discovery in and you're paying for that, and we're going to get the implementation done, and you're kind of talking to me about being interested in event management or service mapping. Let's do a small pilot, let's just pick one service, and we'll take it away as a kind of a pre-sales or a goodwill activity. Let us look at what that could look like to implement for you, and prove the tech, you know, show that it works, and really start getting that buy-in for that journey again.
And I think it's really achievable when somebody has that mindset. When you're dealing with an organisation that gets the enterprise play, they don't need to do it all there and then, but they're like, I can see what the roadmap is, what the journey is, at what point we can do it, and basically we'll just improve and drive as we go forward.
I think the enterprise play is a key thing to touch on as well, because so many people still, we think ServiceNow as an ITSM tool, and when you take them in and show them the pie of all the offerings around HR, SecOps, ITBM, you know, CSM, GRC, custom apps. I mean, the custom apps play alone. You know, when you get that message into them, all of a sudden the world opens up, and they realise that the power they're going to get from implementing these things in the same system is exponentially more than it would be having 3, 4, 5 standalone systems, still with no central system of kind of action and governing it, really. So guys, Adam, Stephen, thanks both for being part of the video today. Much appreciated. Thanks to everyone who's watched the video. We appreciate you taking the time out to view the content, appreciate your feedback. If you are in the middle of an event management journey, maybe you don't know where to start, or maybe you're in the middle of one and don't know where to turn, need some help, advice, or just a conversation, please feel free to get in touch with us at FlyForm. You can find us at flyform.com or on LinkedIn, or feel free to reach out to Adam and his team at ServiceNow, who you can find at servicenow.com.